The Bohemian Club? As you say, the Bohemian Club? That's where all those rich Republicans go up and stand naked against redwood trees, right? I've never been to the Bohemian Club, but you ought to go. It'd be good for you. Get some fresh air.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Welcome everyone to the Best Damn Podcast. I am your host, John Keene. As always, I would like to thank you guys for joining me. Today we have got a pretty good one. We're going to be looking at the Goetia. And this one's called The Initiates of the Flame because we're going to be diving all into the occult tonight, looking at the 72 demons, the Goetia, the Lemegeton, and the Mad Era of the Necronomicon. This is going to be one of those witchcraft videos that are not for the weak-of-willed, weak-of-hearted. And I'm really excited. So make sure that you guys follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn. We do have a tarot raffle going on if you're interested. $3 donations to win a chance at a free mini read. $5 donations to win a chance at a 30-minute personal reading. And as always, those who donate and support to the channel, big ups, big thanks. All of our patrons, big ups, big thanks to all of you guys. Tonight's going to be an interesting one. I've been waiting for a while to do this one too. Not because I'm not, excited about it. Just I've had a lot going on for real. Everybody let me know if you can see me and hear me. Hopefully we get all of the notifications to go out on this one. So just let me know if you guys can hear me and see me in the chat. And we're going to jump into this. I've got so much video. So many books, so many different texts that we're going to go through. And this is going to be like a lesson in demonology, basically. Tonight's going to be an introduction to a series we're calling the Forbidden Occult. And this is because, that's exactly what it is, right? When we look at the word occult, it means to be hidden. It's something that's hidden, that is kept from plain sight, something that is not readily available to the public. And I feel like it's even used as kind of a dirty word, especially in spirituality. And in my opinion, it keeps a lot of us from looking into the things that could truly empower us, not on just a magical level from like a spell casting standpoint or anything like that, but from a subconscious level in our own self-initiation and enlightenment and awakening. What we're going to find tonight, and this is my opinion, and you guys can agree or disagree, I guess after you watch the video you can decide. But what we're going to find tonight is that what a lot of we're going to see tonight, what we call the occult, what we call black magic, what we call witchcraft, all of these things are actually different explanations or methods of summoning different parts of ourself, our own subconscious. One of the themes or the schools of thought that are actually going to be presented as well is like when we're looking at the Watchers, right? These fallen angels that were taught about in the book of Enoch. And keep in mind, this was removed from the original canon as well. Only I think you can still see it in the in Ethiopian, right? In the book of Enoch. But it's been taken out of, mainstream Christianity and all of that. And I believe there's a good reason for that. Because if we were to discover the truth, if we were to find out that these different aspects we're calling angels, we're calling watchers, right? These fallen aspects especially are parts of ourselves that maybe we could even classify as like junk DNA, right? Things in ourselves that we haven't activated, or parts of the collective unconscious or collective subconscious And if we knew different methods to bring that up within ourselves, in essence, we're like piecing ourselves back together from a fragmented state before our enslavement. Now, what if, and let me just kind of pose a few questions here before we jump in tonight. And like I said, those of you who are like a little squeamish when it comes to this stuff, this isn't the video for you. I'm just going to keep it real. This won't be the video for you. We're going to get into some gnarly books tonight. But what if the angels that we are told that are the fallen ones are actually you and me, right? What if what we're actually being explained is, and think about this, the concept of light and sound. And we always talk about this on this channel, that we live in this electromagnetic reality, and that the electromagnetic field or firmament acts as like a lens, like on your eyeball, but for the collective, right? Instead of just me and my eye here, this lens, my third eye, it acts as a third eye for the collective. And the stars and the planets, which represent the 7 colors of the rainbow, 7 days of the week, right? These are the rulers of the reality, or the governors. 7 sons of Satan. We could go on and on with the different analogies for this and metaphors. Are the primary energies that are being imposed into this reality, okay? So each one of these energies are filtering through this electromagnetic field, right? And essentially creating or projecting what we call, our electromagnetic holographic selves, or our idol, right? And when we look into the Bible in the book of Genesis, that's exactly what we see. We were made in the image of the Elohim, right? Image meaning a phantom, a projection, an illusion, right? Now, where is it being projected from? I do believe it's coming from the planets and the stars above. So that means we're existing at a higher dimensional space if the light's being projected through this filter, through this firmament down here, right? So that means we're actually up in the stars. And if you look into the teachings of Aleister Crowley, time and time again, you'll see that we're referred to as stars. You look at the book of Enoch, you have the fallen angels, and anytime we look at a star that's also translated to a prince or a heavenly host, it's all the same thing, just different wording for describing the same being, right? Whether it's a luminary, a heavenly host, a prince, or a star, they're all describing the same thing. And these 200 watchers that have fallen here are the parts of humanity that have, and I guess, the only way to kind of describe it is like they're no longer active within us, right? They've fallen asleep. You look at scientific studies, it talks about we only use 10% of our brains. Why is that? Where's the other 90% of us? Why are we only able to access such a small part of ourselves? Even with the light spectrum and how we view the world through our eyes, we see 0.00001% of the electromagnetic light spectrum. That means 99.9999% you don't see. Why is that? Where have all your abilities gone? Where is the rest of you at? And as we're learning, awakening, and experiencing enlightenment, what are we exactly remembering? Our true selves, our true essence, our true identity. We're putting the pieces, remembering. We're putting the body back together. If we are all connected to one whole being, one whole essence, then there's more than just this. And I think tonight, hopefully, as we go through the list of the names of demons and these different books and different accounts, the account of the Mad Arab and all of this, I hope that it's going to add some depth to your understanding when it comes to this. I'm hoping it does for my own as well. This is going to be like an introduction tonight, just kind of get our feet wet, and hopefully we can shine some light on this and really enlighten people to what I think is going on here. And that's the fact that we were fragmented by someone or something, whether we done it to ourselves as part of the rescue mission like we talked about in the Edgar Casey video and the Atlantis video, right? Where our primordial selves descended down into this reality to co-create and then mingle with animals and got trapped at a low density or vibration, and then we created humanity to come and rescue them, right? That fallen angel concept. Or something else deceived us and enslaved us into physical form and has fragmented us to keep us from being our whole selves and powerful. And if you look at the accounts of the Nephilim and all of that too, right, they were giants, right? They were giants. They were much larger than us. Or Metatron, right, who's 55 feet tall and this perfection of humanity, you know. It shows that there was a lot more to us or to this being than what we are now, right? And they were devouring one another, these giants were, and that's why the earth had to be wiped away, right? And then what else? The demons or the fallen angels in Enoch, what did they teach humanity? All of these different arts like metallurgy and to paint their eyes with makeup. We're going to see tonight that upon the conjuring or summoning of a lot of these demons, that's exactly what they do. They either awaken parts of your subconscious mind, right? So psychologically you're changed or altered, or they bring forth information to the people that do summon them, and giving them insights into things that they otherwise would have no insight into. So I want to thank everyone for joining me. I hope okay, I see Kimberly F., Jeff Snyder, thank you so much. Hey, whatever people belong to, that's totally up to you. Like, I have no qualms with anybody. Whatever they're into is their thing. So we're going to start here first. We're going to read out of the Initiates of the Flame. And like I said, this is going to be a crazy one. So hopefully it goes as planned. Few realize that even at the present stage of civilization in this world, there are souls who, like the priests of the ancient temples, walk the earth and watch and guard the sacred fires that burn upon the altar of humanity. Purified ones they are, who have renounced the life of this sphere in order to guard and protect the flame, that spiritual principle in man, now hidden beneath the ruins of his fallen temple. And remember, the first temple, the second temple, the third temple, his fallen state of consciousness. As we think of the nations that are past, of Greece and Rome, and the grandeur that was Egypt, we sigh as we recall the story of their fall. And we watch the nations of today, not knowing which will be the next to draw its shroud around itself and join that great ghostly file of people that are dead. But everywhere, even in the rise and fall of nations, we see through the haze of materiality, justice. Everywhere we see reward, not of man, but of the invincible one, the eternal flame. A great hand reaches out from the unseen and regulates the affairs of man. It reaches out from that great spiritual flame which nourishes all created things, the never-dying fire that burns on the sacred altar of the cosmos, that great fire which is the Spirit of God. If we turn again to the races now dead, we shall, if we look, find the cause of their destruction. The light had gone out. When the flame within the body is withdrawn, the body is dead. When the light was taken from the altar, the temple was no longer the dwelling place of a living God. And if you can kind of think back, guys, to the Emerald Tablets, right, of Thoth, and he's describing Atlantis and its fall, and some can say that we live in modern-day Atlantis, right? That great temple of light was the last thing to be submerged underwater. And we hear the stories of the Great Flood. And remember, you're made up of 80% water. The earth is made up of 80% water, right? Christ walked on water, right? And when things were created, it separated the waters of the firmament above and below. And that's kind of what gives us our mirror image of reality that we experience now. We are in fact the reflection of the waters and the heavens above, meaning we are projecting from heaven, projecting from a higher dimensional space in a quantum reality as the heavenly host, the angels, looking down, right, through the lattice of space we call reality into the outer psyche, the outer consciousness we call outer space, projecting that light through the filter we call the electromagnetic field or the firmament, creating the holographic projection we call the phantom, the idol, the illusion we call humanity. Right? Degeneracy, lust, and passion, hate and fears crept into the souls of Greece and Rome, and black magic overshadowed Egypt. The light upon the altar grew weaker and weaker. The priest lost the word, the name of the flame. Little by little, the flame flickered out, and as the last spark grew cold, a mighty nation died, buried beneath the dead ashes of its own spiritual fire. And remember that word, guys. Everything being light and sound, even sound being a version of light. When light has hit such a low density, a slow vibration, that it begins to slow down and become matter or solid, right? Light and sound. They talk about how this light grew weaker and weaker, and the priest lost the word. And we go to the Bible and it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. And remember, without words being a wave, right, or the sound, right, representing an energetic frequency, which can be translated into a symbol or a sigil or a name, so on and so forth. And you wouldn't even be able to translate thoughts to yourself without language. So wrap your head around that, right? Without the word, without words, you wouldn't be able to talk to yourself. There would be no conscious state within you. So, but the flame did not die. Let me make sure everything's okay. But the flame did not die, like spirit of which, and hopefully everybody can hear me and see me good. But the flame did not die, like spirit of which it is the essence, it cannot die. And hopefully everybody can hear me. Everybody, let me know if you can hear me and see me. I don't know. Let me pull this up real fast before I keep going. Hopefully I'm not muted. I've done that before, so that wouldn't be the first time I've done something like that. Let me make sure. All right, there we go. Okay. Gotcha. All right, I can hear it. All right, but the flame did not die. Like spirit of which it is the essence, it cannot die. And this spirit that they're talking about is what animates all of us, right? It animates you, it animates me. It's that one living spirit that gives everything in this reality life. That's why El, or God, right? Electric. It's electric. It's life. It's energy. It's essence. It's us. It's not for you or for me to, take for ourselves as an identity. We're just kind of a mask that is, added on to that flame. And because it is life, and life cannot cease to be, in some wilderness of land or sea it rested once again. And there rose a mighty nation around that flame. So history goes on through the ages. As long as a people are true to the flame, it remains. But when they cease to nourish it with their lives, it goes on to other lands and other worlds. And now think about this too. How many different times throughout history do we see geological or archaeological evidence that suggests something totally fucked up has happened on Earth? These events, these catastrophic events, these catastrophic cycles have taken place, right? According to a lot of spiritual texts, the reason being, and you may call it Judgment Day, you may call it the Rapture, you may call it whatever, right? Tribulation, there's a million names for this, and why it happens. It's always because we turn our face from God, right? To turn your face means to turn your focus, right? So we turn our focus from the spirit onto the worldly things. We're projecting our energy into the world, into the physical, into the profane, and not into ourselves, right? We're not feeding ourselves and fanning the flames of the spiritual fire. And then you look at all these great civilizations and cultures like the Mayans, they just fucking disappeared. Why is that? Did they either ascend or were they wiped off the earth because they stopped fanning the flame? The Great Pyramids of Egypt, did they truly collapse? Or, after Akhenaten came and tried to show them the Aten, right? And the sun disk and all of that? Or did they collapse because they stopped fanning the flame? All of these empires throughout history we're told were so long ago and so old. Are they truly? Some people have beliefs that we've even added 1,000 years on to the Gregorian calendar, right? That they actually use the letter I in place of the 1. So I 900, and that's where we started getting 1900, or I 600, 1600, adding 1,000 years onto the calendar, and 1,000 years onto how long it's been since Christ came. And that's for, another day, another discussion, but I just want to kind of get your gears turning in this direction. Have we been here as long as we've been told we have? And if we have, how many times have we risen and fallen? And why? Why do we continue to fall? Is it like that rising and falling of the Kundalini that's within each and every one of us, right? It's just a constant cycle, but it's happening on a grand scale throughout the collective. Is it because we always intellectually outgrow our spiritual maturity and destroy ourselves? Your guess is as good as mine on this, so I'm just asking you. I'd actually like to know, so put that in the comment section below. But it says, those who worship this flame are now called heathens. Little do we realize that we are heathen ourselves until we're baptized of the Holy Spirit, which is fire. For fire is light, and the children of the flame are the sons of light, even as God is light. Now think about that. This is the truth. When it talks about remembering the original teachings, remembering the old ways and things like the Hopi prophecy, I don't believe it's talking about, a particular religion. I think it's talking about tapping into our primordial self and remembering our original knowledge before our fallen state, Putting our fragmented selves, our fractured selves back together. When we're told not to worship idols in the Bible, I don't believe it's talking about fucking statues and shit like that. Or images and pictures of Jesus on your fridge. I think it's talking about, the human body and not worshiping the temple, the vessel, the jar that holds this flame, but the flame itself. I believe that we've fallen a long way from where we once were. And that when every time you hear in the Bible reference to the mighty ones, Nephilim, Gibborim, right? These mighty ones or men of renown, right? Are we actually talking about actual giants? Or are we talking about a former state of existence? And it's been demonized to keep you from trying to go back there. See, this is a thing that a lot of people don't want to consider, and I hate to tell you, one of the hardest things for me, and I'm not perfect by any means, okay? And trust me, like anybody knows that who knows me. Ask my girlfriend, she'll tell you. When we look at modern day things that are happening, we're all willing to accept that politicians are lying to us, that the government's lying to us, that the television is lying to us, But one of the hardest fucking things to come to terms with, and this happened to even me myself, the last thing I let go of was the indoctrination into religion. And I wasn't even religious growing up, but it was ingrained in me that if I turned my back on my religion, if I turned my back on that belief, that I'd burn in hell. I'd burn in hell for eternity. I'd be damned. Why? Because God would curse me. Now, if you were trying to, and we won't accept that, right? Everything else is false, but the religion's true. Well, your religion's true, because we all know there's like a whole bunch of them that all tell the very same story in a different way, and then give God a different name, but they're all essentially the same shit. We've discovered that on this channel. But at the same time, nobody is still willing to come to terms with that part of the story is also a lie. That part of the story is also a system of control. That part of the story is also to keep you from recognizing your power, your abilities, and your full potential as a being, as a piece of God. If you are a piece of the omnipresent, omnipotent, infinite, all-powerful creator, then what does that make you? Right? Even a piece of the infinite is still infinite. It's still omnipotent. It's still omnipresent. It's still all-powerful, all-knowing. You just don't know it anymore. You have forgotten it. And that's what we call the veil of forgetfulness. That is the human experience, is to forget that we are all connected to this oneness, to forget that we have this ability within us. And these rulers of the reality, these lords of the reality, we call the archons, the governors, the government, right? And remember, when we think of government, it means to govern or lord or control. Mental, mentality, your mind. It's controlling your mind and your beliefs and how you perceive reality, because perception is reality, right? What you think is what it is. How you believe, that's what it is. Even Jesus said that, did he not? Right? It's by your faith you are healed. What is your faith? It's belief in what is unseen, without evidence even being present. Right? And if they had you knowing who you truly were, what you truly are, and what you're truly capable of, then they could no longer control you. They could no longer suppress you. They could no longer victimize you. You would outgrow this place we call Earth, this fish tank we call Earth, and ascend back to the stars, maybe to where you came from. Who knows what's after this? You know? So it seems like right on time, as these cycles come to a close, as humanity comes back to the pinnacle of its spiritual self, destruction comes. Is this our own way of keeping ourselves imprisoned? Is this a prison, or is this our own way of making sure that we mature enough to go along with the spiritual growth, or is something or someone else in control? So let's go ahead and jump into some of this tonight. I'm going to start here first. This is just a really interesting video. Well, I mean, people can say it's about a lot of different things, but I think ultimately, and you're right, you know, the micro versus macro level, yeah, it is about greed and money and things like that, but it's like none of that would even exist if we weren't in this fragmented, you know, partial state of what we actually are, right? It's like these demons need to feed on something, right? So it's like they got to keep us creating down here, co-creating down here, you know, that way they can have their purpose in this physical existence. And, you know, I highly suggest that people watch the video I did on Edgar Casey and Atlantis, because it really does tell like another side of all the, you know, we're going to be looking at tonight, just for those who are interested. So here we go. we're going to start. Oh man, I've got some cool ones too. We're going to start here first with a little video, just because I think it's pretty interesting. And this is from a Forbidden Occult series, something I've been watching myself. Let me make sure you guys have sound. Alright. I think we're good to go.
And the more notorious Goetia of the Lemegeton, the so-called Lesser Key, which catalogued and described the 72 genii of the Arabian Nights that old King Solomon had imprisoned in a fabulous brass vessel.
And we're going to read two tonight. I don't know if you guys can hear it raining. It's hitting my window here. We're going to discover these 72 genii tonight. We're going to look at their names. We're also going to look at the story of the Mad Arab as well. So what he's talking about here. So you're going to see the sigils, the demonology, all of it, because tonight is the introduction. That way the next part we can really dive, balls deep in this shit, and you'll understand what the fuck I'm talking about.
In my irrational state, I was totally convinced that there was a hidden truth behind this fantastic story. Like Aladdin's wonderful lamp or Ali Baba's open sesame, there was a secret key to calling up those mighty princes of the jinn that Solomon had imprisoned so long ago, and I was determined to find it. I studied the writings of the ancient and modern magicians. They had filled their books with the most detailed instructions on how to build, inscribe, and decorate all the necessary equipment, all the signatures of the spirits, and even the hours during which to summon them.
And what he's talking about too, what you guys know about King Solomon. And I remember, and hopefully we have time and we'll get to it, but like in the tarot, which is divination, and there's many forms of divination, pendulums, astrology, tarot, all of this, right? A king represents a particular age or state of development of the initiated, or of the spirit or the soul that they're referring to, or the person they're referring to. So a king, you can't be a king until you're 40. Right, so they're talking about an age whenever they talk about king, queen, priest, prince, page, all of that. We look here in the pentagram, right, or the pentacle, which is the starfish body. It's you. You have 5 appendages, right? And in essence, as we get into this too, we're going to, the magic circle and the triangle, which is the first part of creation. Then you put the circle inside, which would be like your third eye. And the 5th part is to put it into motion, which is the pentagram. And you see tetragrammaton written on the pentagram. And whenever they do their rituals as well, you'll usually see like the names like Michael, right, written across it for protection. We'll talk about those angels as well, because that's north, south, east, west. Michael, Suriel, Raphael, and Gabriel, right? And they're in charge of the cardinal directions as well as the 4 elements. So water, wind, earth, fire, and those break down through a master mandala. You can actually see it into all of these different demons, sub-demons, from the 72 to the 200, and that's how they're kind of ruled and controlled. So
Conjurations and names of power were all set forth, complete and ready to recite. Hear me, and make all spirits subject unto me, so that every spirit of the firmament and of the aether, upon the earth and under the earth, on dry land and in the waters, of whirling air and of rushing fire, and every spell and scourge of God may be obedient unto me. Wonderful, powerful. All you have to do is recite it aloud, and you can feel the hairs start to rise on the back of your neck. But where, how, and in what form are these spirits we're summoning supposed to appear? That one all-important element, how to make the spirit physically appear, was always missing from the old grimoires. Now, I knew that over a dozen ancient and modern writers on magic couldn't be involved in one big, long-standing conspiracy to suppress this final secret, so it seemed obvious that at some time in the past, the key to the magical art had been lost, And the modern writers and experimenters just simply didn't know how it was done. This suspicion turned out to be true. Turn of the last century, the famous, or if you prefer infamous, magician Aleister Crowley had tried to conjure one of the Lemegeton's Goetia demons out of incense smoke. And, not surprisingly, he had very little success after a great deal of effort. This did not surprise me. Trying to form an image or commanding a spirit to produce an image out of curling, twisting smoke was more of an experiment in telekinesis than a vision from beyond.
And you can translate that into a lot of ways too, guys. A lot of people will also classify our lower carnal self as, a smoke or a phantom or a vapor. So, I feel like one could even surmise that he was possibly trying to conjure it out of his lower aspects of himself, right? That curling, twisting smoke, but also as above, so below. We do things in ritual form because we can bind it here, then we can bind it there in the ether, and vice versa.
Aleister Crowley did not possess the secret technique, but he certainly understood the philosophy. He stated clearly in his 1904 edition of the Goetia of the Lemegeton that the spirits of Solomon's brass vessel are portions of the human brain. Even though I might have been temporarily insane at the time, I had lost none of my intellect. I knew that magical visions were certainly hypnotic. In this respect, Crowley had been absolutely right. Solomon's genii would not come forth from caverns beneath the earth. They would rise out of the nether reaches of the deep mind.
They would rise out of the nether reaches of the deep mind. And a lot of times, when we see people experimenting with things, and I can speak from this with, firsthand knowledge. Anybody who's ever participated in seances or ghost hunting, which is a glorified version of a seance where people are too stupid to put a circle around themselves. What happens a lot of times is demons do come out, poltergeists do come out, and if you think about it, if you are part of this one infinite spirit, right? And there's a mirror image of that spirit that is the individual you, right? In essence, you're commanding a poltergeist, right? You're the poltergeist, though. So when we're summoning these parts of ourselves that are not awakened to this reality, they're dormant still within us, a lot of times people get things like demonic attachments, and that makes one wonder, are these demonic attachments from external entities? Or are these individual fragmented parts of the self that are coming back alive or reawakening, right? And are disassociated from our being, right? Whether it's former lives that we've lived, right? Or these are disembodied spirits of, people that have passed on, and that flame, that light, that essence has left that shadow now, right? One can only guess, but, I'm starting to believe that a lot of what we're experiencing, with demons in particular, and what we call fallen angels and angels are just aspects of ourself. And think about it, if we've all been convinced that we're separate, right, and you reawaken a part of yourself, right, it feels alien, it feels foreign. It doesn't know it's a part of you either, because in whatever, state it was in, it was asleep, it was dormant. And who's to say that you're just one being, right? You have all this junk DNA, right? These are, which is the genetic code, the genetic frequency that is you. Why is all this dormant within you? Is there more of you to you than you know? And it kind of gets one thinking, like, what is truly going on here? And then as we get into the whole, 200 watchers and all of that as well, it's like one can really start, going down the rabbit hole of, if we were to have the ability to awaken all parts of ourselves, in essence, we would become some sort of superhuman or giant. So
I noticed that the sigils of the Lemegeton's Goetia spirits were very similar to the Veves of Caribbean voodoo. I had done extensive research on voodoo for one of my adventure novels published in 1967. I knew the voodoo trance, wherein the participant becomes possessed by the spirit, was known to be hypnotic. The focal point of these ceremonies was the Veve of the Ogun, drawn on the ground and illuminated by candles. Somehow this symbolic signature helped to bring forth the vision. At this point, your high school science teacher might be saying, well, if all this magic is only in the mind, weren't those old wizards and even the modern magicians like that Crowley fellow just using their imagination? Yes, they certainly were. But the human imagination, inspired by its divine creator, is the most powerful force in the universe.
And think about that too. And this is like a kind of a little known fact. Every bit of your reality that you perceive is actually created through your imagination. It's just a lot of us are perceiving frequencies in such a similar way that we have a shared reality, right? One that's agreed upon. And I believe it's described in one, I don't know if it's John Dee, but it's like basically like if we're both walking on the road and there's a gentleman between us. I see his right side, you see his left side, but you know, we both essentially see the same thing, but from different points of views or different perspectives. That's kind of how we all perceive the world, right? We're all essentially looking at similar things, but here's the kicker. At the back of the optical nerve, between your brain and your optical nerve, there's like a space in between there where it's not even totally connected. So that would mean somewhere between where you're seeing, your brain, and what you're perceiving, that you're actually creating that, right? So that would mean all that you're seeing is being created. And when we think about the concept of the waters and the reflection, right, knowing that everything we do see hits the back of our eyes, is flipped around because it's upside down, right? Like a water, like a reflection would be, and then perceived to be the right way. Well, is it truly even being flipped upside down and inverted if there's this disconnect between the optical nerve and the brain, or is it all being created in here?
A river of hopes and dreams that bears us all along on its flowing course.
The river Styx.
From the beginning to the end of time, from planet Earth out to the farthest star. Let us recall a few lines from the greatest of the Romantic poets, William Wordsworth. Of shouting angels and the imperial thrones, I pass them unalarmed. Not chaos, not the darkest pit of lowest Erebus, nor aught of blinder vacancies scooped out by help of dreams, can breed such fear and awe as fall upon us when we look into our minds, into the mind of man. With that in mind, let's look at the philosophy and the psychology that lies behind this powerful system. To begin with, we should not make the mistake of thinking that those old magicians were credulous and naive enough to believe that they could physically manifest the kind of heavenly glories and hellish horrors that Bosch and Blake depicted.
And if you think about it too, like what he's describing here, and we're going to jump into some books in just a second. I just want to give you a couple of minutes of this. For one, it's just really cool and obscure. The images we're seeing, you know, are today's movies. You know, these old paintings by Michelangelo and all these people, you know, Dante's Inferno, they're describing through what the medium they had available, right, to show people the subconscious mind and the creative power of the human and display, you know, what it's made up of. So all these legion of demons and all of this that you see, or these layers of, you know, Dante's Inferno, the 7 layers. Why is it 7 layers down? There's 7 chakras, so there's 7 layers up. It's a, You know, it's a mirror image. A lot of what we're seeing, like even you see the famous picture of, man touching, fingers to God, and it's inside of a brain. It's showing you it resides within here. So to make a long story short, this was our way of expressing the same thing we express in movies today. That's why so many conspiracy theorists have gotten fucking rich off of this stuff, telling you that every movie's satanic. Are they all truly satanic? Or, like Carl Jung had actually discovered, is everything a projection of the collective unconscious mind? Even when we look at the Zodiac and the 12 disciples and, all of this with Jesus and the archetypes, these are all parts of the collective unconscious. We all have these archetypes within us, right? Those main archetypes, and then we have smaller archetypes as well. And this is the makeup of who we are, because we're all a replica, a piece, a fragment, a fractal of the same fucking thing, right? That's hard to believe for some, but not for all. And we're all different variations or frequencies or variances of the same thing. Different perspectives. Like all these, and you hear the biblical tales of the cherubim, right? And they have covered with eyes, right? Covered with eyes. We are those eyes, guys. I'm one eye, you're another eye. My perspective is different than yours. My makeup is different than yours. Different parts of me are activated because I'm a different piece of the body. I'm a different piece of the being, And when we get into astrology and alchemy and all of these things, that's why these are the original sciences, the sacred sciences, because there is an actual scientific method, even if modern day science has taken all spirit out of it and wants to call it pseudoscience. Right? And that's what black magic does a lot of times. Right? They take something spiritual, remove the spirit out of it, and make it abstract and physical. Right? And that's what science has done. And remember, science derives from the Latin word scien, which means to divide. Why do we need to divide? Right? Why? Because that's the only way we can recognize the difference of reality, and the only way we can have our own individuality and an understanding of the all, right? It's all one. It's all one thing. So you have to separate it in order to look at it and study it and understand it. Because when it's all together, it's just all-knowing, right?
These artists, like the Hollywood movie makers of today, symbolize the subtle power of magic with intense and sometimes lurid physical images. In magical operations, the roof does not fly off as choirs of angels descend in blinding rays of light, nor does the floor crack open to disgorge a horde of fire-breathing demons. The actual effects of magic are very powerful, but they are also subtle and subjective. As Cornelius Agrippa, one of the greatest of the Renaissance magicians, explained, "There is another meaning than what is writ in the bare letters about this magical art. We must not look for the principle of these grand operations outside of ourselves. It is that internal spirit within us which can very well perform whatsoever the monstrous mathematicians, the prodigious magicians, the wonderful alchemists, and the bewitching necromancers can effect." Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa was certainly an honored philosopher and magus, but we should remember that King Solomon was considered to have been the wisest man who ever lived. The wisdom of Solomon was proverbial. Therefore, we should not be surprised to discover that Solomon's art of magic was actually an ancient system of psychology.
Right, and the psychology, Solomon used the demons to build his temple, right? So he was understanding that through ritualistic acts, by activating different parts of the ethers, whether he was using herbs or sounds or, literal physical acts or blood like you see in the Bible, whatever, right? That certain combinations were the equivalent to opening up certain parts of reality and giving him access to certain energies, and by interacting with said energies or frequencies, it activated those very same energies or frequencies within himself, right? In essence, making him limitless in his abilities. Now let's go here. We're going to start jumping around now. First, we're going to start off with the Goetia and sorcery. So the Goetia is a type of European sorcery and often referred to as witchcraft. That has been transmitted through grimoires, books containing instructions for performing magical practices. The term Goetia finds its origins in the Greek word goes. Interesting, right? Goes, satellite, right? Which originally denoted diviners, magicians, healers, and seers. Initially, it held a connotation of low magic or lesser magic, lesser keys, and that also kind of makes one think, when we think about the keys, right? Ben Franklin, right, who was a member of the Hellfire Club, having the key on the end of the kite to catch electricity, or L, right? Just weird stuff like that. Implying fraudulent or deceptive magia, as opposed to theurgy, which was regarded as divine magic. Grimoires, also known as books of spells or spell books, and remember, that takes us back to the word when we talk about spells, because when we understand, we stand under the spelling of the word, serve as instructional manuals for various magical endeavors. They cover crafting magical objects, casting spells, performing divination, and summoning supernatural entities like angels, spirits, deities, and demons. Although the term grimoire originates from Europe, similar magical texts have been found in diverse cultures across the world. The history of grimoires can be traced back to ancient Mesopotamia, where magical incantations were inscribed on cuneiform clay tablets. Ancient Egyptians also employed magical practices, including incantations, inscribed on amulets. And the magical system of ancient Egypt, known as Heka, underwent changes after the Macedonian invasion led by Alexander the Great, and the rise of the Coptic writing system and library of Alexandria, which was destroyed, further influenced the development of magical texts, which evolved from simple charms to encompass various aspects of life, including financial success and fulfillment. Legendary figures like Hermes Trismegistus emerged, associated with writing and magic, contributing to the creation of magical books. And notice, everyone that was favored by God in any book of any kind was known as a scribe. What does a scribe do? They write, right? And when you truly think about it, these scribes were, yes, they had the ability to use the word to create or co-create, right? But also, they were being used by the Spirit in itself as a sort of writing utensil, right? So, who was the pen? Who was the pencil? Who was the paper, right, in this scenario? Because God was using them like a pen to write onto the reality we call the world, right? As they were using a pen to write onto the paper, right, and create these books. Micro, macro. It's just really interesting when you think about it and the different names. These are the keys, guys. Every time we look at the words and we look at the original meanings of the words, it takes us to what, and a lot of these words, even the characters and a lot of the religious stories, their names had meanings to them, and it was the meanings, these names, that were meant to give you the true meaning of, the stories that you were being told, like biblical accounts. So when a lot of people say, yeah, the Bible is very allegorical or metaphorical, it's like they're not lying. It is, but is it an allegorical understanding of some doctrine of religion that, man has made up, thousands of years after our consciousness has dropped? Or are these allegories actually like spiritual footnotes, if you will, to ignite something within us on a subconscious level, that if we read it, right, the more we read it, like the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, right, it tells you to read it 100 times, right, because every time you read it, you gain more insight, more wisdom, more understanding, because your consciousness is raising. So you see it from a different point of view, right? That perspective changes. So while you're looking at it head on, you're then looking at it from above at eventually, one point or another, right? Or below. Next, we look at the list of demons in the Ars Goetia. And this is really interesting. So, the demons' names given below are taken from the Goetic grimoire Ars Goetia, which differs in terms of numbers and rankings from the Pseudo-Monarchia Daemonium of Johann Weyer. As a result of multiple translations, there are multiple spellings for some of the names, explained in more detail in the articles concerning them. The sole demon, which appears in Pseudo-Monarchia Daemonium, but not in the Ars Goetia, is proofless. The 72 angels of the Shem HaMinfarash are considered the opposite and balancing force against these demons. So you have, these 72 demons and the 72 angels of the Shem HaMinfarash. Right? And here are the sigils right here of the demons. And you can see every single one of these guys, every one of them, are connected to a sigil or a symbol, right? A logos, right? That is connected to their name to be summoned, right? And every one of them also correlate to different minerals and metals and colors and combinations of colors, and also different attributes of humanity, both good and bad, because it's all dualistic. So just to kind of give you a little bit of insight on what we're looking at here. And I do, really want to warn people that, if you want to take some of this stuff on in your own time, like, this isn't a joke or a game. Like, this shit will fuck you up if you're not careful. It's like, many of people, I think, have went absolutely insane from trying to mess with some of this and playing around with it and not respecting its power and understanding how it's connected to us psychologically and spiritually and emotionally. So it's like you need to thoroughly understand all the levels of this before you fuck around, because if you try to, you're going to open up a door that you maybe can't close. And if you disrespect some of these entities, there will be consequences. That's all I can say for that. So it's like, really be careful if you go down this rabbit hole. Make sure you do it with respect, and you do it with a clear mind, a clear head. So the kings, according to the Grand Grimoire, and Baal or Baal, is the head of the infernal powers. He is also the first demon listed in Virus Pseudo-Monarchia Daemonium. According to Virus, Baal is the first king of hell with estates in the east. He has 3 heads, a toad, a man, and a cat. And, that kind of makes me think of like Pepe the Frog and shit with all the Trump stuff. You know what I mean? Like the toad and shit. Just saying. So these are just 3 different ways that Baal can come to you. And a lot of people, and I've experienced this, y'all. Like, I've had people that, have sent bad stuff my way. And some of the ways I would, like, besides, having, like, that spiritual feeling or bad luck or whatever, like having, like, a toad in the house or something like that. That's some really uncommon shit, and those are a lot of different ways that this stuff manifests. It's kind of like a warning sign, like, yeah. Or these demons will come to you in dreams and shit, and a lot of times they'll come through a window or a door because it's symbolic of them entering into the subconscious mind, or, being invasive into your spiritual being. So, 3 heads, which kind of makes you think of a trinity as well. And we're going to keep pointing out the different similarities to religion. So if you're upset with that, sorry. 3 heads, a toad, a man, and a cat. And he also speaks in a raucous but well-formed voice. He commands 66 legions. How many books are in the Bible? Baal teaches the art of invisibility and may be the equivalent of Baal or Beelzebub, one of the 7 princes of hell, or the 7 sons of Satan. And remember, in the Ark of the Covenant, like an archangel, right? Ark of the Covenant. The covenant, or the agreement, is represented by the rainbow. Right? The rainbow is what? 7 colors representing 7 planets. And we see here the similarity. One of the 7 princes of hell. And those 7 planets are the governors. And what did I tell you about planets? What are the AKA? Princes. Right? That's another word for planet, or angel, or watcher, or messenger. Right? Prince. So Paimon, or Paimonia, or Paimon, is one of the kings of hell, more obedient to Lucifer than other kings are, and has 200 legions of demons under his rule. He has a great voice and roars as soon as he comes. And you hear a lot of people that encounter demons, they'll hear like growls and hisses and shit like that. And in demonology, by the varying ways that they come to you is how you know who you're dealing with, if you're not intentionally fucking with one of these things. So, and keep in mind, a lot of people would say, well, why the fuck would I, why would I call him one of these bastards? And it's like, because, a lot of them, and you're about to see, some of them do actually, have spiritual authority and can do things, and that's why people have fooled with them to start with. So this Paimon here, 200 legions of demons under his rule. He has a great voice and roars as soon as he comes, speaking in this manner for a while until the conjurer compels him, and then he answers clearly the questions he has asked. When a conjurer invokes this demon, he must look towards the northwest, the direction of Paimon's house. And when Paimon appears, he must be allowed to ask the conjurer what he wishes and be answered in order to obtain the same from him. So each one of them have rules. And I think it's a Grand Clavicle of Solomon, which, we will get into all of these books. We've covered some over the years, but this is going to be like a whole account of all of them this time. So, in a really in-depth look at them. But whenever you make agreements or summon a lot of these demons or make pacts with them, there are rules that have to be followed, right? So, and for each one, the rules are different. Now, when Paimon must also be allowed to ask the conjurer what he wishes and be answered. So if he asks you something, you have to answer him, and he has to answer you, right? So Paimon teaches all arts, philosophies, and sciences, and secret things. He can reveal all mysteries of the earth, wind, and water. what the mind is, where it is, and everything the conjurer wants to know. He knows good familiars, or he gives good familiars, dignities, and confirms them and binds men to the conjurer's will. If payment is cited alone, buffering or sacrifice must be done. And he will accept it, though the precise nature of the gift is unclear. Then 2 kings called Babel or Label or Abalim will go to him together with other spirits, often 25 legions. But these other spirits do not always come unless the conjurer calls upon them. Payment is depicted as a man with an effeminate face, wearing a precious crown, and riding a dromedary. Before him often goes a host of demons with the shape of men playing trumpets, cymbals, and any other sort of musical instrument. And this is Payment right here, for those of you that are interested, right? He's got like the girly face. He's real pretty, right? That's one of his things, you know. So each one of them all have their own thing, and here's Baal, right? And this is a pretty famous illustration of him too, by the way. You know, the man's face, the toad, and the cat. And you think about, like I said, you know, with the Pepe the Frog thing, it goes even deeper than that. Even when Moses is dealing with the Pharaoh in Egypt, what a lot of people have recently discovered is when he's talking about the different plagues, each one of them are representations of identities of demons that he's dealing with. So like the plague of frogs and shit, like that's one of these demons, right? And it's represented by frogs. The locust and all of that, sacrificing the firstborn, right? These are all different demonic entities, and he's showing them up. He's showing up. Moses is God, right? Or Akhenaten, right? The sun god, Sol, is showing up all of these lesser gods, right? By using the very familiar that they use to create plagues and things like that, or by using their very power. And a lot of people don't know that. So I don't know if you guys knew that. I want to just throw that out there. I think it's actually really interesting, right? Because when you think of the God of Israel, right, and Israel, right, Isis, Ra, Elohim, right? So this triune God, okay? And remember, there are 72 good angels too, okay? And in everything that we have, right, we have the dark side, the lesser side, and we have the greater side, you know, the higher side. So, you know, this Trinity God, Lord of Hell, Baal, you know, that all the Canaanites and shit worship. And then you have the Trinity God that comes in and starts busting the ass of all these demonic entities by using the familiars that they had to cause the plagues back in the days of Egypt. And it even says in the Initiates of the Flame that, you know, Egypt was overrun by black magic, right? It's like the perversion of magic, you know? It's like this always happens where man gets his spiritual knowledge and decides to use it to fuck people up, you know, and to be greedy. And it's like whenever you're using magic to heal and to help, you know, nothing but good can come from that, you know, when you're trying to use your power for good, when you're trying to, you know, bring enlightenment, bring awareness, and bring knowledge, and bring love and healing, and you know, all of that to anybody like that, you get good stuff back from that. You're putting out good into the ether. But when you try to use it for, you know, selfish purposes, it never works out in your favor. So, and you also see, too, that he comes in the shape of men playing trumpets, cymbals, and other sort of musical instruments. And you hear a lot of times, you know, Lucifer, and he is what? Kings of hell, obedient to who? Lucifer, and he plays music, right? So Lucifer's the god of music, and then you think like the walls of Jericho and shit, they're blowing trumpets before they go around them. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, a lot of this stuff is very, very similar when we really think about it, and this should be something, fuel for your fire. The next time that you read the Bible, the next time that you read any religious book, to think about it in a subconscious context of what you're actually looking at, right? Because you might not be reading a story about something that actually happened, and I believe a lot of it did actually happen, but it's because it's a manifestation of the collective consciousness. Next we have Beleth, also spelled Belay or Belith. He is a mighty and terrible king of hell who has 85 legions of demons under his command, and he rides a war horse. And all kinds of music is heard before him. According to most authors on demonology and the most known grimoires, according to the Suno Monarchia Demonium, Ham, or son of Noah, was the first in invoking him after the flood, and wrote the book on mathematics with his help. Now think about that, right? Ham, the son of Noah, after the flood, was the first one to invoke him. So this is that clue. Like I said, these watchers and shit like that before the flood, I do believe were parts of ourselves. When they were talking about men were doing all these crazy things and these giants are devouring people, I believe it's because we had awakened all these crazy aspects of ourselves and we're fucking superhuman. And those types of people couldn't be stopped. So God came down and wiped them all out, right? Because they were preying on everyone else. And if you think about the elites and shit like that today, could one say that maybe that's happening now? You know? By creating these giant corporations, which are in essence spiritual bodies that are dominating the very world you live in today. You know, as above, so below. Just because it's happening on the stock market doesn't mean it's not happening in the spiritual. It absolutely is. Now, when appearing, he looks very fierce to frighten the conjurer or to see if he is courageous. The conjurer must be brave, and holding a hazel wand in his hand, must draw a triangle by striking towards the south, east, and upwards, and command Belith into it by means of some conjurations. And we will take a look at some of this. I'm going to show you some of the little layouts. That's why they use, circles, because it's the unbroken circle, or Ouroboros, right? Cycle or orbit in the nature, of creation, to protect themselves, because it can't be penetrated, right? The magical circle can't be penetrated when they're conjuring or summoning these things. And you'll see them be put in a triangle with a circle inside a lot of times whenever they bring them out. And it's to keep them trapped within, that triangle. That way they can't take off on you and attach to you, or you're not wanting to unleash them on the world. You're wanting to bring them up for a minute, talk to them, and then send them back where they came from, because they're powerful beings, and they're disembodied. So, right. You are compatible with each and every one of them. I do believe that as well. A lot of people activate demonic parts of themselves and never know it. Those who, can't keep their dick in their pants and things like that, like, spirits of lust or whatever, like, that's a demon you're feeding. It's not just a healthy sexual appetite. If it is something that is taking control of your life or causing harm to your life or harm to others, right? Whether it's because you can't stop having sex with people, or you can't stop doing drugs or drinking or whatever it is, right? You are feeding some sort of external entity. You've unleashed something in your life, and you don't always have to use a sigil and write the shit down to let it loose. Sometimes, and we call these familial curses. Sometimes we are born because of our ancestors, just like your ancestors can come help you fight, your battles. your ancestors also pass their demons on to you too as well. So you'll see like certain bloodlines and shit are cursed, and that's why they wanted to keep certain bloodlines pure as well. So we'll get into all this stuff more as we go deeper and deeper. Now, if he does not obey, the conjurer must rehearse all threats the conjuration said. Then Baelith will obey and do all that he is commanded. But the conjurer must be respectful and pay homage unto Baelith due to all his rank, and hold a silver ring in the middle finger of the left hand against his face, as it is the use of hellish kings and princes before Ammon. Baelith gives all the love of men and women he is commanded until the conjurer is satisfied. And we're going to do like one or two more, and then we're going to jump into the story of the Mad Arab. So I just wanted to give you kind of like a feel of this as we go through. So, and make sure if you're watching this, first off, please be respectful if you're in the chat, you know, guys. And also make sure to hit that thumbs up, and I'd love to see your comments and just see what you think about all this. I know I did this one late tonight. I know this has been one that's been put off for a while, but this really should have a lot of useful information in it. So, moving on, Person, also Curson or Person, is a great king of hell, being served and obeyed by 22 legions of demons, not to be confused with Corson. He knows of hidden things. He can find treasures and tell past, present, and future. Taking a human or aerial body, he answers truly of all secret and divine things of earth and the creation of the world. He also brings good familiars. Person is depicted as a man with the face of a lion, carrying a ferocious viper in his hand and riding a bear. Before him there can be heard many trumpets sounding. The demon blows internal trumpets and is believed connected to the revelator, to the Antichrist. He also knows the system, and in Hebrew called Yosef Isika 666. And this is Person right here, right, riding the bear with the lion's head. And this is what I say, if you haven't seen it, I think it would be a very wise move on your part to watch my video on Edgar Cayce and Atlantis, because we dive deep into that, talking about our primordial existence and how the first of us descended down into matter, or the earth realm, or physical existence, and they weren't trying to create perverse, beings. Like, they were really just taking like their favorite things and putting them together. So they would have like a fucking, a lion's head and, riding a bear. Like, that's how these demons were actually created, according to those stories. Okay? And once their reality solidified, once they had created these forms and projected themselves into it, they lost awareness. They became, carnally minded. Think about it. A man with the appetite of a fucking bear or a lion? Do you think that's going to come out as a good combination? Not at all, right? Like, it would be a very beastly man. Like, he would be a savage, and that's why these demons have the nature that they have, and some of them, because they came from or descended from angelic form, they had these angelic gifts. Some of them were prophetic, some of them sung music, some of them, like, it wasn't, and it's like, we always demonize, these entities, but it's like we never look at it from, the point of view of empathy. It's like, imagine if you're some primordial being, and I think you were. I think all of us were at one point. And I think that's how humanity was created even. And you're wanting to, you're in this realm where all of your thoughts and all of this, just like the dream world, where you can create anything, you know? And you're taking your favorite animals and all this and you're putting them together because, you know, that's what your favorite stuff is. And, you know, it turns out, you know, you get trapped in that. You know, you get trapped in that and you get detached from your brothers and sisters and detached from God. And, you know, in that version of the story, it was man who descended down on a rescue mission to save these guys, right? To save these original beings. And then all of a sudden, we have the Book of Enoch that talks about these 200 watchers. And what did they do? You know, they perverted man. They taught us, you know, how to, you know, make weapons and, you know, paint our faces and sexual acts and witchcraft and all of that. And I'm not saying that's not true, you know. And we had these giants that were created, these super beings that happened, and they were devouring other men. Does that sound familiar? Like maybe, and these were men of renown, right? Heroes of old, men of renown, these giants. You know, devouring other men and each other. Was this literally devouring? Or was it energetically? You know, were they like spiritually taking other people's souls? Right? And taking each other's souls in battle. Right? That's what I actually think they were describing. That's why God came down here and wiped this place clean. You know? And, I think, you know, in my opinion, the same thing's happening today, you know, through television and radio and the internet and all of that. We're seeing the same shit happen today. People are literally using magic and conjuring up shit through their sigils and their brands, right, and their logos to attract energetic attention for shit-ass negative reasons to harm others. And it's like, it'll probably suffer the same fucking fate that these people suffered. So, and Asmodeus. This is also Asmodai, Asmodeus, Asmodee. Appears as the king Asmodee. The Ars Goetia, where he is said to have a seal in gold, and is listed as number 32 according to respective rank. He is strong, powerful, and appears with 3 heads, and the first is like a bull, the second is like a man, and the third is like a ram or a goat, and the tail of a serpent. And from his mouth issues flames of fire. Does that not sound fucking familiar as shit? Just saying. Also, he sits upon an infernal dragon, holds a lance with a banner, and amongst the legions of Ammon and Asmodee governs 72 legions of inferior spirits. And now we're going to just kind of show you the hierarchy here. It goes from kings to dukes to princes to marquis to earl to knight and finally presidents. Isn't that weird? Right? Presidents. I feel like we have, you know, something like that in our own government. And remember, you know, governors, rulers of the reality. We have a demonic system in place. And it's like people don't understand that. Well, even the ranking system's the same. Right? It's demonic. And it's like that's, I guess it's neither here nor there for most people. They don't give a fuck. So, now we're going to go to... Alright, hold on. Before we do the Mad Arab. Okay, here we go. The testimony of the Mad Arab. And then we are going to go over to... I don't know if we'll do a little bit of the Goetia or we'll hop more into demonology and the devil lore. Let's do the demonology first here. This is really interesting too. And you see the owl, the Minerval, right? Here. And here's the preface, and this is like the story where this book came from. And it's always 3 initiates, 3 something, right? Triune. So 3 friars, says a legend, hid themselves near the witch Sabbath orgies that they might count the devils. But the chief of these, discovering the friars, said, Reverend brothers, our army is such that if all the Alps, their rocks and glaciers, were equally divided among us, none would have a pound's weight. This was in one alpine valley. Anyone who has caught but a glimpse of the world's Walpurgis night, as revealed in mythology and folklore, must agree that this courteous devil did not overstate the case. Any attempt to catalog the evil specters which have haunted mankind were like trying to count the shadows cast upon the earth by the rising sun. This conviction has grown upon the author of this work at every step in his studies. Now think about that, guys. Any attempt to catalog the evil specters which have haunted mankind were like trying to count the shadows cast upon the earth by the rising sun. So it starts off literally with, these friars, these priests, sneaking up on this coven and their axe, and they're trying to count the demons. And you're like, hey, you're wasting your fucking time. There's so many of these damn things, you're never gonna do it. So, alright. Now let's go over here again. I just thought that was incredibly interesting. Here we go. The testimony of the mad Arab, and this is the Dementation or the Necronomicon. So, yeah. This is the testimony of all that I have seen and all that I have learned in those years that I have possessed the 3 seals of Mashu. I have seen 1,001 moons, and surely this is enough for the span of a man's life. Though it is said the prophets lived much longer, I am weak and ill and bear a great tiredness and exhaustion, and sigh hangs in my breast like a dark lantern. I am old. The wolves carry my name in their midnight speeches, and that quiet, subtle voice is summoning me from afar, and a voice much closer will shout into my ear with unholy impatience. The weight of my soul will decide its final resting place. Before that time, I must put down here all that I can concerning the horrors of that stalk, without and which lie in wait at the door of every man. For this is the ancient arcana that has been handed down of old, but which has been forgotten by all but a few men, the worshippers of the ancient ones. May their names be blotted out, because you conjure demons by their names, right? And if I do not finish this task, take what is here and discover the rest, for time is short, and mankind does not know nor understand the evil that awaits it from every side, from every gate, from every broken barrier, from every mindless acolyte, and the altars of madness. For this is the book of the dead, the book of the black earth, that I have written down at the peril of my life, exactly as I received it. On the plains of the Ajiji, the cruel celestial spirits from beyond the wanderers of the waste. And when we think about the Ajiji, a lot of us think about Marduk, and the tales from the Sumerians, right, which are connected to the Mesopotamians as well, which we heard, the original stuff starting in Mesopotamia, but the Sumerians and the story of Enki and Enlil, right? And the Ajiji were supposed to be the servant race that was created by these brothers, right, and mated with, the daughters of men. So these would be the giants, right, the watchers, the Ajiji, okay? Let all who read this book be warned thereby that the habitation of men are seen and surveyed by that ancient race of gods and demons from a time before time, and that they seek revenge for that forgotten battle that took place somewhere in the cosmos and rent the worlds in days before the creation of man. When the elder gods walked the spaces, the races of Marduk, as he is known to the Chaldeans, and of Enki, our master, the Lord of magicians. Know then that I have trod all the zones of the gods, and also the places of the Azonai, and I have descended unto the foul places of death and eternal thirst, which may be reached through the gates of Ganzir, which was built in in the days before Babylon was. Know too that I have spoken with all manner of spirit and demon, and he spells it daemon, whose names are no longer known in the society as man, or were never known. And the seals of some of these are writ herein, yet others I must take with me when I leave you. Anu, have mercy on my soul. I have seen the unknown lands that no map has ever charted. I have lived in the deserts and the wastelands, and spoken with demons and the souls of slaughtered men and of women who have died in birth, and the victims of the she-fiend Lamashta. I have traveled beneath the seas in search of the palace of our master, and found the stone of monuments of vanquished civilizations, and deciphered the writings of some of these, while still others remain mysteries to any man who lives, and these civilizations were destroyed because of the knowledge contained in this book. So saying essentially that it's this knowledge, right, of the subconscious, this Lameghatin Goetic knowledge, right, these demons and the ability to conjure them and awaken this in man is what got our ass wiped out before, right? So just saying, there might be a reason that these societies stay secret, right? It could have nothing at all to do with, they feel like they're scared and don't want you to know. I highly doubt that, right? It's probably more because it's so fucking forbidden and so dangerous, right? Not from any other man, but from the gods and heavens, right? That if too many people know it, they'll come down here and wipe our ass out again, right? That's just a possibility. Or, like I said, the powers that be don't want people in a state like this because it would, in essence, make you superhuman and uncontrollable. And a person like me, right, that is just stupid enough and crazy enough to look into all of these things, no wonder, they've never liked what I do here, and they probably don't like people like you either, because you're stupid enough and crazy enough to watch this shit. So I have traveled beneath the seas in search of the palace of our master, and found the stone of monuments vanquished civilizations, and deciphered the writings of some of these, while still others remain mysteries to any man who lives, and these civilizations were destroyed because of the knowledge contained in this book. I have traveled among the stars and trembled before the gods. I have, at last, found the formula by which I passed the gate of Arzir and passed into the forbidden realms of the foul Ijiji. I have raised demons and the dead. I have summoned the ghosts of my ancestors to real invisible appearance on the top of temples built to reach the stars and built to touch the nethermost cavities of Hades. I have wrestled with the black magician Ezatoth in vain, and fled to the earth by calling upon Inanna and her brother Marduk, lord of the double-headed axe. I have raised armies against the lands of the east by summoning the hordes of fiends I have made subject unto me, and so doing found in God, the God of the heathens, who breathes flame and roars like 1,000 thunders. I have found fear. I have found the gate that leads to the outside, by which the ancient ones who ever seek entrance to our world keep eternal watch. I have smelled the vapors of that ancient one, queen of the outside, whose name is writ in terrible Magan text. the testament of some dead civilization whose priests, seeking power, swing open the dread, evil gate for an hour past the time and were consumed. I came to possess this knowledge through the circumstances quite peculiar, while still unlettered son of a shepherd is what is called Mesopotamia by the Greeks. And remember, guys, those who are followers are called sheep. Those who lead and guide and teach are shepherds, right? They're guiding the sheep. And, Christ was a shepherd, a shepherd of men. And he was also able to raise the dead, like Lazarus. Christ was a magician, in my opinion. There is even certain magical practices that you can take the Lord's Prayer and many other things from the Bible, and they're actually magical acts or rites. When I was only a youth, traveling alone in the mountains to the east, I called Mashu by the people who lived there. I came upon a gray rock carved with 3 strange symbols. It stood as high as a man and as wide around as a bull. It was firmly in the ground, and I could not move it. Thinking no more of the carving, save that they might be the work of a king to mark some ancient victory over an enemy. And right there, I just kind of want to point out some of the symbolism, and this is just how deep this shit is. And I just want to point this out. So, when he's talking about this, he's, the mountains of the east, right? And some of the things that he's discussing here. I came upon a gray rock, right? Where we, many have heard that the mountains, the giants were like turned to stone, things like that. You hear the stories of like Medusa turning to people stone with their head of serpents. The living rock, right, with Christ and Jesus and Peter and all of that as well. And then the color gray, right? Gandalf the Gray, or gray being something that's black and white, right? Good and evil, above and below. It's the middle way, the middle path, the narrow gate. Carved with 3 strange symbols. There's your Trinity, your triune, right? It stood as high as a man and as wide around as a bull. So this can be describing different aspects of ourself, the 3 heads of a demon, and we just was looking into demons that had bull heads and man heads as well, right? And it was firmly in the ground. I could not move it, right? The ground being the earth element. Thinking no more of the carvings, save that they might be the work of a king. And we also described, and I'll show you the actual text in just a second, but a king represents an age. It's 40 years old. And when we look at Moses, his 40 years in the desert and all of that, right? The desert, this represents an initiation. When we are initiated, we are in the desert because it's where all of the elements are separate. And the elements are the physical representation of God. So, in the desert, sand is separated from dirt, water from dirt, right? Like, it's not together. You go somewhere else in the forest, water and dirt make mud, but in the desert, it's all separate. All the elements are separate and on their own, so you can experience each element: wind, fire, earth, right? So on and so forth. Okay, so I just wanted to point those out, okay? And also, we know that he said that he went to the mountains of the east, right? We can get into a lot of things. He could be talking about the zodiac for one, of the east, Aries. He said it was a bull, a ram, right? And we just talked about the demon that was a bull and a ram with a man's head as well, that was also from the east. So we could be talking about a couple different things. This could have multiple layers and multiple meanings. That's how a lot of this stuff works. And these are all, to me, in my opinion, things to trigger the subconscious and trigger the mind. We're creating connections here. So it's like the more you read stuff like this, the more of these kinds of books you read, the more of these synopses that fire in your brain and these connections are made, essentially reconnecting or remembering this original knowledge that's been kind of erased from your memory. It's still in you, right? It's just not been activated. You got to be reactivated, right? Initiated, right? So, thinking no more of the carvings, save that they might be the work of a king to mark some ancient victory over an enemy. And think about that. A king to mark some ancient victory over an enemy. A king, that certain age, 40, mark, right, or brand, right, some victory over an enemy. So it's marking the victory over the lower self. I built a fire, right, which is spirit or magic, at its foot to protect me from the wolves that wander in those regions and went to sleep. For it was night, and just wolves too, right? Wolves in sheep's clothing, wolves looking to devour, whatever. He built a fire, which is like illuminating something. It's the spirit at its feet to protect me, right? God's footstool is the earth. Built a fire at its feet from the wolves that wander in those regions, the nether regions, right? And when we look at the Bible, when it talks about, the north, it means, right, space, right? When we're talking about these regions, that's what it is. It's space. It's outer space. It's outside of the human consciousness, okay? So he built a fire. Built a fire at its foot to protect me from the wolves that wander in those regions and went to sleep. Why'd they go to sleep? Because they're dormant, right? They're dormant within the subconscious. And if you look at the collective conscious, the collective unconscious would be that region of us that's still sleeping, right? Those wolves that are asleep, those demons that you haven't awakened. For it was night, and I was far from my village, being Bet Darabia, being about 3 hours from dawn, and the 19th of Shabbatu. I was awakened by the howl of a dog, perhaps of a wolf, uncommonly loud and close at hand. The fire had died to its embers, and these red glowing coals cast a faint dancing shadow across the stone monument with the 3 carvings. I began to make haste to build another fire when, at once, the gray rock began to rise slowly into the air, as though it were a dove. I could not move or speak for the fear that seized upon my spine and wrapped cold fingers around my skull. The Deek of Azukbelia was no stranger to me than this sight, though the former seemed to melt into my hands. Presently, I heard a voice, softly, some distance away, and more practical fear, that of the possibility of robbers took a hold of me, and I rolled behind some weeds, trembling. Another voice joined the first, and soon several men in black robes of thieves came together over the place where I was, surrounding the floating rock, of which they did not exhibit the least fright. Now, I want to show you something. Where's it at here? Let me see if I can pull this up real fast. I'm going to show you the black robes thing here. One of these right here. Hopefully I can get this, guys. I have it. I just gotta find the tab here. But I want you to see what he's actually describing. And I hope this is making sense to you guys. And I hope that you find this as interesting as I do. Here it is, right here. Right here. The term Black Robe Regimen referred not to a literal regiment of soldiers that wore black robes into battle, but rather to the influential clergymen who promoted American independence, supported the military struggle against Britain by encouraging the patriot cause. Those ministers helped muster critical support among members of their congregation, support the British begrudgingly acknowledged as vital to maintaining the colonists' frustrating resistance to British attempts to restore parliamentary rule. And remember, like this monarchical rule and all of this, like with the monarchs, was because they had a divine right through God, through their bloodlines, to rule over the serfs, right? Or the rest of us, okay? So we also see here, now remember, there's nothing new under the sun. I just want to, the Black Robe Regiment is somewhat similar to the 5th column, identified by the Spanish general Emilio Mola. The 5th column, like as described by JFK as a secret society, a monolithic 5th column, right? So I just wanted to point that out. I found that to be incredibly interesting. These Black Robe regiments or Black Robe societies, which we also can connect to the Rosicrucians and Agrippa and all of that, which we will do as we push further. I promise you, there will be videos specifically just on the Rosy Cross and all of this, but it's like we got to cover the base story first, okay, to go there. This is going to be one badass series. Hopefully, people enjoy it. If not, I will. Presently, I heard a voice, softly, some distance away, and a more practical fear, that of the possibility of robbers, took hold of me, and I rolled behind some weeds, trembling. Another voice joined the first, and soon several men in black robes of thieves came together over the place where I was, surrounding the floating rock, of which they did not exhibit the least fright. I could see clearly now that the 3 carvings on the stone monuments were glowing, aflame, red in color, as though the rock were on fire. The figures were murmuring together in prayer or invocation, of which only a few words could be heard. And these in some unknown tongue, though, Anu, have mercy on my soul. These rituals are not unknown to me any longer. The figures whose faces I could not see or recognize began to make wild passes in the air with knives. And you guys will see a lot of the ritualistic stuff. They'll take a knife like this, right? And they'll, Michael to my right. And, and they usually sing it like, Michael to my right, right? So that's what he's describing. He's seeing a magical ritual taking place. And where's it at, Terror? Anu, have mercy on my soul. The figures whose faces I could not see or recognize began to make wild passes in the air with knives that glinted cold and sharp in the mountain night. And remember, knives and swords also represent words or communications, right? The double-edged sword, the word, right, of Christ. From beneath the floating rock, and everything has dualistic meanings, multiple meanings, multi-layers. You live in a multi-dimensional reality. From beneath the floating rock, out of the very ground where it had sat, came rising the tail of a serpent. This serpent was surely larger than any I had ever seen. The thinnest section thereof was fully that of the arms of 2 men. And it rose from the earth. It was followed by another, although the end of the first was not seen, as it seemed to reach down into the very pit itself. These were followed by still more, and the ground began to tremble under the pressure of so many of these enormous arms. The chanting of the priests, for I knew them now to be the servants of some hidden power, became much louder and very nearly hysterical. Ia ia, zai zai, ia ia, zai zai za, ia ia katulu zikur kia. The ground where I was hiding became wet with some substance. Being slightly downhill from the scene I was witnessing, I touched the wetness and found it to be blood. In horror, I screamed and gave my presence away to the priest. They turned towards me, and I saw a loathing that they had cut their chest with the daggers they had used to raise the stone for some mystical purpose. I could not then divine, although I know now that the blood is the very food of these spirits, which is why the field after the battle of a war glows with an unnatural light, the manifestations of the spirits feeding thereon. May Anu protect us all. And a lot of people, this is one thing I've heard, that blood is actually like lights the path for these demons to come into our reality, right? It's like that's why they use blood, you know. Blood is the essence or our life force, right? And there's something within our blood. That's why you hear like the blood of Christ, right? Purified blood. And as we look into a lot of these magical texts, it even gives, I think it's the Book of the Law. I don't know if it's the preface or whatever, but in the book it talks about the ranking of blood too. Like the bottom blood is an animal, and then it goes to a innocent child, and then to a priest, and then an initiate. So it's like got rankings on how important what blood is too. Okay, because these bloods bring in higher powers of these entities. So that's why they're always doing the, you know, the ritual sacrifice and, you know, blood magic in essence. And you even see a lot of the spirit cooking with like Maria Abramovich and all this, like these fucking famous ass people with the menstrual blood and semen, because it carries the power of life, right? So my scream had the, and that's where sex magic comes into play as well, because masculine, feminine, male, female, right? And whenever they consummate or create that act, they charge the air with that creative power, right? So you have sex, and it's like, I don't know if you, and I feel like I weird people out when I say this stuff, but I just don't give a fuck, man. So when you do consummate and you have sex, not only does it, like, you know, make your muscles swell up if you're a male, and your blood pressure rise and your heart pound and all that, and it has this physical effect, but sometimes there's a smell in the air. People will say they can smell sex as well, and that's not saying you're a dirty butt, but you know what I mean? Because it's like pheromones that are given off, as well as there's an energetic discharge as well, you know. And that's why a lot of the Egyptian kings, they would, and we've talked about this, had the ability to unk their sexual energy back in, up over their head, back into their body. So they only, you know, they willed their children into existence, basically. When they were ready to release their seed is when they had a baby. No time before. So they would be like 90 fucking years old, 100 years old, and then pass that seed on. You know, they kept all their energy to themselves. They weren't just spilling it out into everybody like we do now, you know. And I was just talking to somebody about this earlier. You know, how when you have sex, right, this creates astral ties, astral connections, and they were even telling me, you know, like maybe you want to consider, you know, cord cutting rituals, you know, like when you start a new relationship or something, to like cut off the people in the past that you dealt with. You know, you ever notice Mercury retrograde comes around and your exes start fucking coming back and all of that, or people you don't want to come back keep coming back? It's because you're feeding them energetically through that astral connection. And, you know, there's a, you know, the more you interact with somebody, the more trauma, more energy exchanges, you know, the bigger the connection, the bigger the energy that's being fed, you know. The bigger the need to cut them the fuck off, right? It gives new meaning to cutting somebody off, too. My scream had the effect of casting their ritual into chaos and disorder. I raced through the mountain path by which I had come, and the priest came running after me. Although some seemed to stay behind, perhaps to finish the rites. However, as I ran wildly down the slopes into the cold night, my heart giving rise in my chest and my head growing hot, the sound of splitting rocks and thunder came from behind me and shook the very ground I ran upon. In fright and in haste, I fell to the earth. Rising, I turned to face whatever attacker had come nearest me, though I was unarmed. To my surprise, what I saw was no priest of ancient horror, no necromancer of that forbidden art, but black robes fallen upon the grass and weeds with no seeming presence of life or bodies beneath them. I walked cautiously to the first, and picking up a long twig, lifted the robe from the tangle of weeds and thorns. All that remained of the priest was a pool of slime, like green oil, and the smell of a body laying long to rot in the sun. Such a stench nearly overpowered me, but I was resolute to find the others, to see if the same fortune had also befallen them. Walking back up the slope that I had so fearfully run down only moments ago, I came across yet another of the dark priests in identical condition to the first. I kept walking, passing more of the robes as I went, not venturing to overturn them any longer. Then I finally came upon the gray stone monument that had risen unnaturally into the air at the command of the priest. It now upon the ground once more, but the carving still glowed with the supernatural light. The serpents, or what I had then thought of as serpents, had disappeared. But in the dead embers of the fire, now cold and black, was a shining metal plate. Excuse me. I picked it up and saw that it was also carved as a stone, but very intricately, after a fashion I could not understand. It did not bear the same markings as a stone, but I had the feeling I could almost read the characters, but could not, as though I once knew the tongue, but had since long forgotten. My head began to ache as though a devil was pounding my skull, when a shaft of moonlight struck the metal amulet, for I know now what it was, and a voice entered into my head and told me the secrets of the scene I had witnessed in one word: Cthulhu. In that moment, as though whispered fiercely into my ear, I understood. These are the signs carved upon the gray stone. That was the gate to the outside. And this is the amulet that I held in my hand and hold to this very day around my neck as I write these words. Of the three carved symbols, the first is a sign of our race from beyond the stars. It is called Ara. It is the tongue of the scribe who taught it to me, an emissary of the elder ones. In the tongue of the eldest city of Babylon, it was Ur. It is the sigil of the covenant of the elder gods, and when they see it, they who gave it to us, they will not forget us. They have sworn. Spirits of the skies, remember. The second is the elder sign, and is a key whereby the powers of the elder gods may be summoned. When used with the proper words and shapes, it has a name and is called Aga. The third sign is a sigil of the Watcher and is called Bandar. The Watcher is a race sent by the elder ones. It keeps vigil while one sleeps, provided the appropriate ritual and sacrifice has been performed. Else, if called, it will turn upon you. Now think about that. They're telling you. He's telling you. He's breaking it down for you exactly how this shit works and the different layers and what it all means, you know. These watchers, this race sent by the elder ones, who watch, excuse me, I got the yawns, who watch while the older ones, the older gods, sleep, right? And with the appropriate ritual and sacrifice, if not, it will turn upon you. And that's why, they're demons, right? These seals, to be effective, must be graven on stone and set in the ground, or set upon the altar of offerings, or carried to the rock of invocations, or engraved on the metal of one's god or goddess, and hung about the neck, but hidden from the view of the profane. Of the three, the Ara and the Aga must be used separately, that is to say, singly and alone. The Bandar, however, must never be used alone, but with one or both of the others. For the watcher must needs be reminded of the covenant it has sworn with the elder gods in our race, else it will turn upon thee and slay thee and ravage thy town until succor is to be had from the elder gods by the tears of thy people and the wailing of thy women. Kakamu, the metal amulet that I retrieved from the ashes of the fire, and which caught the light of the moon, is a potent seal against whatever may come in the gate from the outside, for, seeing it, they will retreat from thee. Save only if it catch the light of the moon upon its surface. For in the dark days of the moon, or in cloud, there can be little protection against the fiends from the ancient lands, should they break the barrier, or be let in by their servants upon the face of the earth. In such a case, no recourse is to be had until the light of the moon shines upon the earth, for the moon is the eldest among the Zonai, and the starry symbol of our pact. Nana, father of the gods, remember. Wherefore the amulet must be engraved upon pure silver in the full light of the moon, and the moon shine upon it at its working. And the essence of the moon incantations must be performed, and prescribed rituals as given forth in this book. And the amulet must be exposed to the light of the sun, for Shamash called Yadu in his jealousy will rob the seal of its power. And think about that, he's talking about this god, this jealous god will rob it of its power. In such a case, it must be bathed in water of camphor, and the incantations and ritual performed once again, but verily it were better to engrave another. These secrets I give to thee at the pain of my life, never to be revealed to the profane or the banished, or the worshippers of the ancient serpent, but to keep within thine own heart, always silent upon these things. Peace be to thee. Henceforth, from that fateful night in the mountains of Mashu, I wandered about the countryside in search of the key of the secret knowledge that had been given to me. And it was a painful and lonely journey, during which times I took no wife, called no house or village my home, and dwelt in various countries, often in caves or in the deserts, learning several tongues as a traveler might learn them, to bargain with tradespeople, and to learn of their news and customs. But my bargaining was with the powers that reside in each of these countries. And soon I came to understand that many things which before I had no knowledge, except perhaps in dreams. The friends of my youth deserted me, and I then, when I was 7 years gone from my family, I learned that they had all died of their own hand, for reasons no one was able to tell me. Their flocks had been slain as the victims of some strange epidemic. I wandered as a beggar, being fed from town to town as the local people saw fit, often being stoned instead of threatened with imprisonment. On occasion, I was able to convince some learned men that I was a sincere scholar, and was thereby permitted to read the ancient records in which the details of necromancy, sorcery, magic, and alchemy were given. I learned of the spells that cause men illness, the plague, blindness, insanity, and even death. I learned of the various classes of demons and evil gods that exist, and of the old legends concerning the ancient ones. I was thus able to arm myself against also the she-devil, Lamashta, who is called the sword that splits the skull, the sight of whom causeth horror and dismay, and some say death of a most uncommon nature. In time, I learned the names and properties of all the demons, devils, fiends, and monsters listed herein in this book of the Black Earth. I learned of the powers of the astral gods and how to summon their aid in times of need. I learned, too, of frightful beings who dwell beyond astral spirits, who guard the entrance to the temple of the lost of the Ancient of Days, the Ancient of the Ancient Ones, whose name I cannot write here. In my solitary ceremonies in the hills, worshipping with fire and sword, with water and dagger, and with assistance of a strange grass that grows wild in certain parts of Mashu, and with which I had unwittingly built my fire before the rock, that grass that gives mine great power to travel tremendous distances into the heavens, as also into the hells. I received the formula from the amulets and talismans which follow, which provide the priest with safe passage among the spheres, wherein he may travel in search of wisdom. But now, after 1,001 moons of the journey, the Maskim nip at my heels, the Rabishu pull at my hair, Lamashta opens her dread jaws, Ezagthoth gloats blindly at his throne, Cthulhu raises his head and stares up through the veils of Sankun Barlumi, up through the abyss, and fixes his stare upon me. Wherefore I must with haste write this indeed. It appears as though I have failed in some regard, as to the order of the rites, or to the formula, or to the sacrifices, for now it appears as if the entire host of Ereshkigal lies waiting, dreaming, drooling for my departure. I pray the gods that I am saved, and not perish, as did the priest Abdul bin Martu, which this Abdul bin Martu, a lot of people, different name for Jesus with the bin stuff, so I don't want to go there, but just saying there's, in Jerusalem, the gods remember and have mercy upon him. My fate, and remember, Moses is cursed too, according to some books in the Bible. My fate is no longer written in the stars, for I have broken the Chaldean covenant by seeking power over the Zonai. I have set foot on the moon, and the moon no longer has power over me. The lines of my life have been obliterated by my wanderings in the waste. Over the letters written in the heavens by the gods, and even now I can hear the wolves howling in the mountains as they did that fateful night, and they are calling my name and the names of others. I fear for my flesh, but I fear for my spirit more. Remember always, in every empty moment, to call upon the gods not to forget thee, for they are forgetful and very far away. Light thy fires high in the hills and upon the tops of temples and pyramids, that they may see and remember. Remember always to copy each of the formula I have put it down, and not to change it by one line or dot, not so much as a hair's breadth, lest it rendered valueless, or worse. A broken star is the gate of Ganzir, the gates of death, the gate of the shadows and the shells. Recite the incantations as they are written here in the manner this prescribed. Prepare the rituals without erring, and in the proper places and times render the sacrifices. May the gods be ever merciful unto thee. May thou escape the jaws of the Maskim and vanquish the power of the Ancient Ones. And the gods grant thee death before the Ancient Ones rule the earth once more. Kakamu Selah. I mean, when you think about this, dude, it's like, damn. Damn. This is a story not only of initiation, but it's a story of one's own journey, through the depths of the underworld, the subconscious mind, and that's why we keep a book of shadows when we practice things like this. It's because it's like a scientific method. If we have this knowledge that is forgotten, it's like people have given their fucking lives to try to bring this knowledge back, So they write down the methods that worked and the ones that didn't. And I feel like, if you found your way, to this kind of knowledge, it's because you were meant to. Whether it be just for something to learn or something to activate within you when you hear it. You were meant to. I think each and every one of us have all of these beings, these deities, these entities within us, And we have control. We're given dominion over all things. So everything within this sphere we call Earth, everything within this plane is not only connected to us and a part of us, but is and dormant within us, but is something we have dominion over. And these sorcerers, these practitioners, they have, braved the depths of the underworld or the outer psyche, the outer consciousness to bring these parts forward, and have suffered fucking terrible deaths, insanity, all of these things for not doing it, in the correct manner or, misusing or abusing the power that they received or was given. So I do think it is like a warning too, not just for those who practice stuff like this, but for all of us in general. With great power comes great responsibility, and that's not just some back of the cereal box superhero shit. Like, that's real. What we do unto others always comes back to us. It's only when we do things with pure intention and pure heart, are we acting out of our divine self. If you're motivated by lust and greed and envy and jealousy and vengeance and all of that, what do you think you're going to create? What do you think is going to come back to you? Just that, And you can use as many buffers, you can appease as many gods as you want, but at the end of the day, you have accumulated that karma, and if it don't get you in this lifetime, it'll get you in the next. You can't outrun it forever. You can't outrun it forever. And this is why I feel we see bloodlines to this very day that are just fucking cursed. It's because their families, their lineages have been doing fucked up shit for a very, very long time. Very long time. To where there's no light left in their line. And if you look at humanity as a whole, I don't think we're like jumping out on a ledge here by saying there's probably not a lot of humanity that has a whole lot of spark left in them anyways. And that's the only thing that actually gives you dominion over these beings, over these entities, is that Christos, that Christ, that spark within you, that anointing within you, that Holy Spirit, that holy fire, that flame. And so when they talk about these initiates of the flame, that's what we're talking about. Is igniting the spark within us. And whether it's the way our brain operates, with this sacred secretion that drips down our spine and is used as sexual energy or prana or tantra or whatever different method, school of thought or variation, however you want to look at it. right? Or it's the Kundalini bouncing up and down through our system of chakras and the energetic fields and the way that we expand. They're all connected. They're all talking about the same thing. Guys, in essence, you know, we're only given a finite tank of fuel on this earth. You know, we're only given so much life to do, you know, what we want to do with. And it's like, are we going to waste our energy and our power on fucking TVs and, you know, movies and people that don't care about us, and just all of these different toxic shit ways that we can waste our energy in our life? Because to me, life is too short, life is too precious to do anything other than, you know, live the most spiritual experience you can have. Have the most creative expression of you that you can be. Because that's what you're here to do, is create. That's what you're here to do, is create. You come from a creator. You're a child of a creator. Children of the light. You're here to nurse that light, to fan that flame. Most people never know that, though. Most people never experience that. Most people never take that journey. For one, it's fear. It's fear. Religion. Legion, right? Like legions of demons, right? They're being put back into that legion. Has trapped them and told them they'll be cursed if they, you know, do this or say that or whatever, right? They have no dominion and no power over themselves whatsoever, and any bit they do have, any authority they do have, they give over to a deity outside of themselves and lose it. They give them their souls over to deities outside of themselves and lose it. Others, they waste that precious energy by harming others, manipulating others, when if they were to use their own energy to do something with their own lives, imagine all of the good they could have done. You know? But instead they use theirs and waste it on, you know, lust of the flesh, or, you know, drugs, alcohol, whatever they desire. You know. And that's why I think whenever they talk about self-mastery and initiation and all that, a lot of this, you know, it is based on, you know, certain ages and stuff like that, because we're not ready, you know, until we reach a certain age, a certain place in our life. We're just not ready, you know. I know I wasn't, you know. Give a 25-year-old version of me this information, I would fuck some shit up, you know. And that's what a lot of people do now. You look in the spiritual communities, a lot of people think they know some shit. You know, the first time you upset them, make them mad, break up with them, whatever it is, you know, what do? They go try to hex you and curse you and put death spells on you and love spells on you and block your prosperity. And it's like, it's insanity. I feel sorry for those people. It's like, do you even know what you're doing to yourself? Whatever you do to, you know, others is going to be, it's going to come back twice on you, maybe tenfold, depending on what you're doing. And this is what I was talking about earlier. You know, we talk about the Sephiroth and all of this, and we're going to be getting into this, the serpent on the tree of life. This is all going to be, by the end of this series, you'll have a good grasp on a lot of this, I hope, if I've done my job right. And you will understand, you know, how it all breaks down. We're going to look at the houses of the heavens, the material world, the elements, the colors, the angels, all of it. You know, and you're going to see how each one correlates to a different pathway or power or angel. And that's why before we ever go into anything, we invoke the archangels first. That way we have those archangels living within us.
In the corners of the triangle.
like this, right? See, Michael, right? These people have literally invoked the archangels within them first for north, south, east, west, right? To cover the protection living within them, before they go talk to anything else and start tapping into the unconscious side of humanity. So before you even go down this road, you have to awaken the divinity within yourself.
To add a visual emphasis to the symbolic geometry that bound the spirit. You must understand this concept thoroughly before you open Solomon's brass vessel and release the genie. It matters not whether you are a Christian, a Jew, a Muslim, or even a pagan. These archangels are very much a part of our Western tradition. They represent the positive forces that drive the engine of the universe and the love that holds it all together. In the order of the Temple of Astarte, we conceive and visualize them as complementary male and female beings. For angels can appear in any form they wish, or any suitable form that your imagination can provide for them. They activate your magic circle of protection. Casting your circle with a pentagram ritual before each operation is certainly important, but that alone is not enough. The great archangels must live in your mind and in your heart.
The great archangels must live in your mind and in your heart. And see, and here's the Master Mandala kind of like breaking it down to where you can see how all of this, each one, and this correlates to the zodiac and everything. And it's like, once you start understanding all these things, it starts making a whole fucking bunch of sense. How it's all done, why our world is the way it is, who rules what, and, even the parts of yourself you don't like, you see could be correlated to some zodiacal aspect or astrological aspect of yourself. Right? And we've all talked about on this channel especially how our astrology is essentially the algorithm of who we are, right? Based on the time we were conceived, the alignments of the stars, the energies that were present, and most strongest and prominent, correlate to the essence of us. And we see this play out in our numerological codes, such as our birthday and our numerology, our names, right? Which, whenever invoking demons and things like that, you do it by a name, So I just want to, and this connects to our personalities, our personas, which are the masks that we wear, which are our demonstrations of our own individuality, or our shadow of our higher aspect or self, which is God. So, I think the face of Christ is on the cross. I don't know, I must have caught just the end of that one. Just must have caught the end of that one. But
method for invoking.
Yeah. And we're going to get into all of this, but you see Hel, Helion, Adonai, right? Adonai, Elohim, Ariel, Jehovah. We're going to get into all the names, different meanings, a correlation to the planets, all of it, guys. Like, this is, it's deep shit, and this is a deep, deep rabbit hole. And I won't be able to cover it in 1 2-hour show. I won't be able to cover it in probably 5 2-hour shows. This is going to be something that's going to take a long time, but I think it's worth the watch, and I think it's worth the wait, and I think it's, if you don't have nothing positive to say about it, I ask that you respectfully don't say anything at all, right? You're more than welcome to disagree or add your input and interpretations in the comment section. I encourage you to do that. Please do so. And if you enjoy the content, share it around to people you think would appreciate this. I know it's not a lot, right? This isn't for everyone, but I do feel like if you came here, you were called here. It's because something in you was meant to be awakened to this knowledge. And what you do with it is what you do with it. I'm not gonna bust out a ritual for you and show you piece by piece. If you want the knowledge, you have to earn it, just like everyone else, But I can show you the door. And you can walk through and decide what parts of the subconscious mind you want to awaken or not, right? And how you want to awaken them. But just understand that everything that we see in religion and everything that we see in spirituality is ultimately leading us to these mysteries. And you may not believe that, you may not buy into that, but that is the truth. That is the truth. Whether it's an exoteric, external, lower, lesser understanding of them or not, most of what you've been taught, most of what and especially what you're hearing on YouTube and TikTok and Facebook, all these people that profess to know the truth and all this, they're still talking exoteric shit themselves. It just sounds really, esoteric. I can promise you that. You'll know it when you see it. Because it will initiate, it will awaken, it will enlighten, it will illuminate something within you. Right? It will resonate on a deeper level than anything else you've ever seen or felt or heard. Some of you, it will put fear into you. Right? And that's something you need to deal with. That's your own fear that you're feeling. If it scares you. Some of you, it'll excite you. It'll trigger you. Your thirst for knowledge is going to come alive. And some of you, it's just going to be that knowing, that confirmation of what you're already looking at and what you're already learning. Whatever it does, I hope, it blesses you and gives you something beautiful from it. I want to ask all of you guys that are watching this, if you got something from this, consider donating and supporting to the channel. PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, or Facebook Messenger Pay, or you can join us over on Patreon. And to all who do donate and give, big ups and big thanks to you guys. To all who pledge on Patreon, thank you so much. I love y'all so much, for real. All you guys who give, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. So thank you for the donations. If you would like to book a tarot reading, I do private readings. This month, the September special's over, but in October, we've got a cool raffle going on. Every week, I'll announce a new winner, and you can put as many entries as you like. $3 donations and a chance to win a mini reading, right, which is a 3-card past, present, future reading, or $5 donations for a chance to win a personal reading, a 30-minute personal reading. So if you donate $20, that's 4 entries, and each week I'll announce a new person, right, that wins. I'll do it on the live show, or I'll post it on the social media. I'll tag you, whatever I got to do, whatever platform it's on. It's going to be chosen randomly from the people, that do donate. So if you're doing that, just put raffle if you want your donation to go towards the tarot raffles, okay? And maybe I'll do a grand prize or something at the end of October or whatever. We'll tackle that when we get to it. So, and if you want to book a personal reading, please text tarot to 513-393-2396 or email therealbestdampodcast@gmail.com. Put tarot in the subject, or tarot reading. I'll send you all the prices. They start from $50 and up. So, it's a fucking steal. Nobody does them that cheap, I'm telling you. And I've worked for years on tarot, and I feel like when you do the one-on-one personal reading, nothing beats it. Seriously, it's a crazy cool experience for birthdays or just anything, whatever, just to do it. If you got questions about shit going on in your life, it's awesome. I love it. I do daily readings on TikTok, Facebook. I try to post them here as well. Check those out. The monthlies, I try to keep up with them. But I do a lot of the monthlies on my phone. And my new phone's supposed to arrive tomorrow. So hopefully that happens. And I can get the rest of the monthlies done. I got the earth signs done so far for October though. So, and check out our other live shows and live podcasts. Like I said, really, if you haven't seen the Edgar Casey Atlantis video, or last few videos really, but that one in particular is really good for a preface to what we've seen tonight. It's really gonna key you in on a lot of, like, you know, it's like the prequel, kinda. You know, I didn't know that when I was making it, but, you know, so yeah. I will be hitting you guys with some, I'll come out with some more, you know, other videos you're used to, but I'm trying to mix it up, man. I just don't believe in the fucking news anymore, you know? I just don't, and I don't want to, propagate the bullshit. So, I mean, people are like, oh, when are you going to do, you know, Planet X videos and all of that? Well, I am trying to work on something with Planet X Nemesis from a spiritual and occult point of view. So it's going to be different than what you have ever seen from me before on that. It's going to be more of an esoteric understanding on that and what I believe they're actually talking about and depicting. So that will be something to look forward to. November the 10th, I will be going on the missing link. I did send an invite out to the faithful witness, Derek Bros, to come on the show. So we'll see. He had texted me a couple days ago. I'm just waiting on a reply. So hopefully we can get him on the channel too. Can I post the link for the one on Casey? Yeah, I can do that for you. That is not a problem. Why you got me? Here we go. Here's the Casey video. Yeah, these are all the dailies right now. Hang on. Where's my regular fucking videos, y'all? Alright, let me see. And you can see the chaos magic, all this. This comes from all of this. This is, you know. I do not know where the Casey video is. Did they take it down? I will pin the Edgar Casey and Atlantis video in the comment section, and let me just say, if they took it down, go watch on my my BitChute or Rumble. It'll be up there. I may have gotten a strike on that one, guys. That's very fucking possible. I do know the one that I was doing with Seth Speaks and Abraham Hicks and all of that. That bitch fucking hit me with a copyright. So, fuck you, Esther Hicks. You know, I used like a fucking 10-second clip of your shit and you gave me a copyright strike. You fucking piece of shit. You know? Like, who the fuck does that? You're trying to share spiritual knowledge and your bitch ass is so worried you're not going to get a penny from advertising that you hit me with a copyright strike? It's not like I was trying to get your money. I gave you credit. I mean, you know, what the fuck, man? I'm just saying, dude. Content creators kill me with that shit. Seriously. It's like they're so worried about monetization and advertising. Like, God forbid somebody use a 30-second clip of yours, right? You've got it posted? Thank you. Thank you. It's still up? Yeah. Yeah, Edgar Casey is absolutely unbelievable, Jamlo. You're right, he is. Yeah, that was dirty, and I've been getting like just spanked by YouTube recently. So it's like every time I come out with a conspiracy video, they hit me with a strike, and then I do a spiritual video, and then that bitch gets me. So it's like, come on now, you know, that's ridiculous. So. And they hide me already, and they don't put out their notifications already. So it's like, that's why it's really important for people to support, you know, like just hit the thumbs up, hit the like, comment, share, subscribe, and if you can't, donate, give to the channel, book readings, that all helps so much. And I can't thank you guys enough. For those of you that do, thank you to Kimberly F. and Jim Lowe and Mist and James Dunn and all my best damn fam out there. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I love you all. I hope you enjoyed tonight. Part 2 will be coming a lot sooner than you think. And I love you all, and I will see you next time. Y'all have a good one. Peace.